of it is that it sort of means that I don't have to think about the environment, really, right? I don't have to think about how it's impacting me, rains or hurricanes or any of that. But this morning I'd like you to take a moment to think about these environmental issues that are facing us. Think about global warming, about what's happening to our world. So I invite you into a spirit of meditation to consider what thin ice that we are on. In this season of rebirth and renewal, this planet, as never before, depends on us. We are on thin You know me speak about my father. He was a passionate environmentalist. And part of the reason was he loved being in the mountains. That was his thing, to just be out there. He loved to climb them, hike in them, everything. And even though my father considered himself an atheist, I know that it was in the mountains that he felt this connection there. And you could see it whenever it was in his body when he was there. He was calmer. He was less angry. He was so very thoughtful. Matter of fact, when I think of my father, I think of him as sort of standing at the top of a mountain, standing there, smoking a pipe, thinking thoughtful thoughts. But it's that pipe. It's that pipe that always kind of gets me, because that's what killed him. My dad was a smoker. He switched to pipe smoking actually in the last decade of his life. He did do some cigarettes, but still mostly pipe, as he thought it was more biodegradable as an option for this terrible habit that he couldn't seem to quit. But when he died, rather unexpectedly, my brother and I, he was actually out to go hiking in the mountains when he died. I love it, he was in the Valley of Fire, which I think for an atheist is a perfect place to die. But I think it's wonderful. I love the irony of that. It was a beautiful Red Rock Canyon. He was taking photographs. But my brother and I, we went to the coroner's office to pick up his effects, what they call it, right? And there was his wallet and glasses and all the stuff he'd had with him as he had died. And we sat there sort of silently going through the last of the remnants of his stuff. And there was this folded up piece of paper. It was very well worn, like it had been there for a very long time. And I opened up to look at it, thinking maybe it was a, grocery list or something. But I had all these sorts of numbers and notes on it. I was like, what is this? And then I realized that my father had been calculating how long it had taken him over his lifetime for his cigarettes to biodegrade. Wow. He'd been worried so much about this negative impact that he was having on the earth that he carried this with him in his wallet. My father's worry reminds me kind of a lot of people, right? I mean, we love our environment. I love living. This weather in Orange County is awesome. But I love mountains too, and the beach. We love the earth. But we have a hard time giving up and getting over our addictions, right? Whether it's an addiction to cigarettes or even just to comfort and convenience, to stuff like air conditioning on our cars and consumer goods, packaged goods, you name it. We're used to all of that convenience, and it's hard to give it up. It's not easy to let go of a whole lifetime, right, of this addiction to convenience and comfort. And like many of you, I do my best to not have on the air conditioning when a nice breeze will do. I open up my doors on nice days and then for my apartment, and I have energy-saving appliances, and I try to recycle or free cycle stuff. But I'm also kind of lazy. Because as some of you know, I live across the street over here, okay? And I drive to church every day, okay? I know. Hey, don't judge, it's a big complex. Sometimes I do have appointments that I have to get to, and that's good, but I've gotten so used to it. I've just gotten in the habit of grabbing my car keys, getting in my car, and coming over here. And I don't think about walking, right? It's just such a convenience to have my car. But here's the thing. As I've been preparing for this sermon, I'm like, we're in crisis mode here. Our Mother Earth is in crisis. And the wisdom of these earth-based traditions tells us that though we go through that death of winter, spring will come again. It's kind of a resurrection that we can count on, the cycle of the seasons. But this global warming is telling us the opposite, that the certainty of spring is no longer true. We're in the midst of a terrible kind of winter, a dying. The repercussions of global warming are that seasons and weather and environments get thrown into turmoil. And that's what we've been seeing, right? Intense hurricanes like never before, massive snowstorms in spring, heat waves and droughts. All of these intense weather conditions leave us in that metaphorical winter, and spring may not come. And that's terrifying. We need spring. For the earth to survive, for us to survive, we need spring and summer and fall and winter. And yet we live with our addictions to comfort and stuff, and it's slowly killing the earth. So what can we do now, even though we're in the midst of this crisis? Well, we didn't get here overnight, right? The depletion of Earth's resources and global warming have been coming on for the last century within the rise of industrialization in the Western world, and the U.S., of course, being at the forefront of that. One of the challenges I have about global warming and environmental issues is that they seem so huge, right? It isn't something that we can reverse overnight, and yet we all know that if we don't do something, now we're going to have to face our children, right? And our grandchildren, our godchildren, our nieces, and our nephews, and we get to say to them, sorry, I know, it's a bit of a mess we made. I don't know what to tell you, we didn't see it coming. It's complicated. We all wanted air conditioning, you see. We wanted our cars. We wanted to fly wherever we wanted to go. We wanted to buy whatever we wanted. We just didn't think. We need to think. We need to think about what each of us can do, and we need to have hope. Hope is very important in all this, because hope helps us with those changes. So here's an interesting fact. Did you know that it takes almost a century, 80 years, for a date tree to bear fruit? 80 years. To plant a date tree, then, is to work toward a different future and trust that though we might not see the fruits, it will be there for future generations. There's a Brazilian theologian, Rubem Alves, and he puts it this way. He said, "Let us plant dates, even though we who plant them will never eat them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. This is the secret discipline. It is the refusal to let our creative act be dissolved away in immediate sense of experience. And it is a stubborn commitment to the future of our grandchildren. Such disciplined love is what has given prophets, revolutionaries, and saints the courage to die for the future they envisioned. They made their own bodies the seed of the highest hopes." We need to plant some dates, metaphorically speaking. So how do we do that? How do we think beyond our lifetime, but to work for that next generation so that they don't suffer what we're already beginning to suffer? You know, I don't have all of the answers. I'm not a great environmentalist. I come from a long line of them, though. So I was inspired to go online, and I found this place. This is just one of many. It's called Footprint Calculator. And this was very interesting. It takes you through a series of questions about how you live your life, like commuting, all that sort of thing. And it tells you what your impact is on the earth. But it doesn't just leave you there. It tells you what you can do to maybe change that as well. Now let me just say I'm not exactly proud of my results, but it did get me thinking. It did get me thinking about that I need to walk more. So I'm going to stop driving to church on days I don't need to. And in fact, I started that commitment this morning. I decided to make a pledge to myself to think consciously, right, about my impact and see what I can do to make a difference. Just a little bit. If each of us just did a little bit, it would go a long way. Even if that's just calling a senator or two, sign on to the Kyoto Award, whatever, sign a letter, whatever it is that you can do something. So I encourage you to go out to this website and see for yourself what kind of impact that you have. And as you go through it, it starts to give you ideas about what you can do. And of course, it'll give you lots of emails to tell you what to do, which is good to have those reminders to get you to think, right, about what you can do. And just one thing, try one thing. And I know that there are some of you out there, Susan Shaw, who live an incredibly sustainable life and could probably get up here and tell us all sorts of amazing things. And for those of you who are making up for the rest of us, I thank you. But unfortunately, we need more than Susan Shaw. And I know there's some others here also as well. So there is another way that we are planting dates here at this church, thinking about the future. The congregation is holding an environmental film series on Saturday, June 2nd. Right? Who here has heard about this? I mentioned a few times. All right, excellent. Been seeing it out there. So, bring a friend, plant a date, bring a date, whatever. Think about someone that you'd like to invite that is open to this idea of changing something in their life. Right? Because the movies that they're showing, they're varied and they're short and they're impactful. And some films appreciate the beauty of the earth, and some look at ways that we can help heal the planet. It will be a great place to get us all thinking. Because that's what we really need to do. We need to not live so unconsciously in our world. So, let me ask you this. Would you like to help heal the earth? Yes. Thank you very much. Like to make a difference, even a small one? Yes. Excellent. Do you want to die wondering if you could have made a difference? Excellent. All right. Then join me in making a pledge of allegiance. I kid you not. All right? I invite you to stand in body or spirit. Put your hand over your heart and join me in this pledge of allegiance to the earth. I pledge allegiance to the earth on which I stand, and to the environment of which I am a part, one planet in a process, with soil, water, and air, like one body, indivisible, with resources to be cherished and protected by all. Let us sing. Remain standing.
Christmas.